Kalina felt his heartbeat fade beneath her hands, heard his final breath whisper her name, and watched the light leave his eyes. For years she spoke to the stone that marked his grave, telling the winter what she never got to tell him, that she loved him. But the dead don't stay silent forever, because on the coldest night of the season, when the wind screamed like the grieving, someone knocked on her door. Slow, heavy, impossible. And when Kalina opened it, Kade stood there, breathing, broken, and claiming he came back from death for her. The snow remembered the night Kade died. Even years later, Kalina could still see it. How the world turned silent when his body fell into her arms. How the steam of his last breath drifted into the winter air like a fading promise. How his fingers went cold even as she begged the moon to give him back. No one returned from a death like his. But she never stopped speaking to him. She visited the stone every week, brushing away frost from the name carved into it, Kade of Winter Peak. She whispered the things she was too late to say, that she loved him, that she wasn't angry he died saving her, that she never once blamed him for slipping away in her arms, only herself for not finding a way to hold on. There were days she felt foolish, talking to a stone, talking to the snow, talking to a ghost she prayed was listening. And then, something began listening back. It started small. Footprints beside his grave, deep ones, too large for any hunter, too heavy for wolves. Snow disturbed in the shape of where a body might kneel. A strange hush in the trees when she approached, as if the forest held its breath. She told herself it was grief. She told herself it was winter. She told herself it was nothing. But winter didn't whisper her name in a voice that sounded like the one she had lost. The first time she heard it, a low, broken murmur carried through the trees at dusk, Kalina froze. She had been gathering firewood, hands wrapped in wool, when the sound brushed the back of her neck like a memory.
Kalina.
Her heart stopped. She spun, scanning the pale woods, breath fogging sharply. Who's there? Silence, only the snow falling softly. But she knew. She knew that voice down to the marrow in her bones. Kade had whispered her name the exact same way the night he died, soft, strained, like it was the last thing he ever wanted to say. Kalina forced herself to breathe. It wasn't him. It couldn't be him. People didn't come back from the dead. Love didn't resurrect the fallen. She wasn't a child who believed in bedtime tales or moon-blessed miracles. Still, she couldn't bring herself to leave the woods until the last hint of twilight faded. Days passed, then weeks, and the whispers grew bolder. They followed her on the northern ridge, echoed in the pines behind her cabin, drifted along the frozen riverbank where she once walked beside him. Deep, guttural sounds bled between the trees, sometimes calling her name, sometimes just breathing, as if someone stood just out of sight. But each time she turned, nothing was there, until the night everything changed. That evening, the storm rolled in early, smothering Winter Peak in a wall of snow so thick she could barely see her own hand in front of her. She had just settled beside her fireplace when a heavy knock thundered against her door. Not a gentle knock, a deliberate one, slow, measured, familiar. Her breath hitched. Kade? She didn't realize she had spoken his name aloud until the wind swallowed it. Her hands trembled as she unlatched the door. The storm roared in, whipping snow around her feet. The world beyond was white and wild. And then she saw him, a silhouette in the blizzard, tall, broad, cloaked in torn black fur, standing absolutely still beneath the storm's fury. Kalina's heart slammed against her ribs. She blinked hard, convinced she was imagining him. Winter played tricks on lonely hearts. Grief carved illusions out of darkness. She wasn't immune to either, but the figure stepped forward. The wind peeled back his hood, and she stopped breathing entirely. "Kade?" she whispered. His eyes were silver, not the warm steel she remembered, but colder, rimmed with shadows beneath, as if sleep had abandoned him long ago. Snow clung to his lashes. A faint scar split the skin across his brow, new, jagged, ugly. His cloak was torn at one shoulder, revealing leather armor scratched by blades she didn't recognize. But it was him. It was him. Her knees nearly buckled. "You're real," she breathed. "You're actually—" "Kalina." His voice was raw, as if unused for years. "I found my way back." She reached for him, fingers trembling. He caught her wrist before she could touch him, his hand warm, too warm, despite the freezing night. "Wait," he rasped. "I'm not the man you remember." She stared at him, tears burning hot in her eyes. "I don't care. You're alive." His jaw clenched, as if the word was foreign to him. Snow drifted across his shoulders as he stepped inside, and for a moment she was too stunned to close the door. Too stunned to speak. Too stunned to do anything but gape at the miracle standing in her home. She touched his chest softly, barely a whisper of contact. His breath hitched, sharp, pained. "Kade, how are you alive?" His eyes darkened. The storm outside howled louder, as if answering the question for him. "I wasn't brought back," he said quietly. "I wasn't revived. I wasn't saved." Her heart throbbed painfully. "Then what happened to you?" "I was taken." Her blood went cold. "Kade!" He lowered his head, the shadows deepening beneath his eyes. "They dragged me from the snow before dawn," he whispered. "The Blood-Fang clan. They didn't want me dead. They wanted what an alpha's spirit carries: power, memory, strength. I woke chained in their northern keep, and His voice broke. Kalina stepped closer, cupping his cheek with shaking hands. "Kade, no. I thought I'd never see you again." His breath trembled, his forehead pressing into hers. "Every day I clung to the last thing I remembered. Dying in your arms, hearing you say my name. That kept me alive, Kalina. You kept me alive." Her tears finally fell. He closed his eyes, brushing his thumb along her jaw. A gesture so achingly familiar, it stole the breath from her lungs. She pulled back just enough to see him fully. "Kade, what did they do to you?" He stiffened. For a long moment, he said nothing, only the storm spoke. Then, slowly, painfully, he reached for the clasp of his torn cloak and pulled the fur aside. The leather beneath was ripped open across one side of his chest, shredded by claw or blade. And through that tear, she saw it. A thin, silver mark glowing faintly over his heart. A single line of light pulsing softly. Alive. Kalina gasped, a hand flying to her mouth. "Kade, what is that?" He pulled the cloak closed, shadows carving deep into his expression. "You don't want to know." "I do." "You can't." His voice deepened, shaking. "Kalina, listen to me. I wasn't freed, I was released, and I don't know why. I don't know what they did to me or what they want now, but they're coming. For me, for you. They will tear apart every peak in the north to reclaim what they think is theirs." She reached for his hand. "Then stay. We'll face them together." He shook his head once, hard. "No, I came back to warn you, not to stay." A sharp pain carved through her chest. "Leave," she whispered. "After I thought you were dead, after I mourned you every day for years, after you knocked on my door, you want me to let you walk away again?" He looked away, jaw clenched as if the sight of her was the one thing he couldn't bear. "I can't lose you twice," he murmured. "You won't," she breathed, stepping into him. "Not unless you choose to walk out that door." Silence stretched, tense and fragile as winter glass. Then slowly, painfully, Kade lifted his gaze to hers, and the truth in his eyes nearly shattered her. "Kalina," he whispered weakly, "I came back from the dead for you. I can't risk dragging you into the shadows that follow me." Her hand slid up the front of his torn armor, fingers curling into the fabric as her voice trembled. "I waited for you even when you were gone. Don't make me wait now that you're alive." He exhaled a sound between a growl and a plea, and in the next heartbeat, he pulled her into his arms. Kalina sank into Kade's embrace, her cheek pressed against the rough fur of his torn cloak. For a moment, everything else vanished, the storm, the years of grief, the fear twisting inside her chest. All she felt was him. Solid, warm, alive. Inside her chest, all she felt was him, solid, warm, alive. She had imagined this moment 1,000 times, but the reality was overwhelming. His heartbeat pounded beneath her ear, strong and steady, and she clutched him tighter, as if afraid he would turn to smoke in her arms. "You're real," she whispered again, her breath trembling. Kade's grip tightened around her waist, pulling her even closer. "I shouldn't be," he murmured. "Kalina, I shouldn't be here." She shoved gently against his chest until he stepped back far enough for her to see his face. Snow glistened in his dark hair, the strands damp from the storm, and his silver eyes glowed with something deeper than pain. Something like longing, something like fear. "You're here," she said fiercely. "That's enough." He shook his head, jaw flexing. "You don't understand. I didn't escape that place. They let me go. And things like them don't release their prey without a price." Her heart hammered painfully, but she didn't step back. "Whatever they want, they won't have you. You can't promise that." "I just did." He made a sound, half frustration, half despair, and dragged a hand through his hair. The motion pulled his cloak open again, revealing the faint outline of the glowing mark beneath the torn leather. Kalina looked at it, mesmerized despite herself. He caught the direction of her gaze and exhaled sharply. "Don't." "Don't what? Look at you? Worry about you?" His eyes softened for the briefest moment before hardening again. "Don't get close to that part of me." Too late. Kade stared at her as though she was something both fragile and terrifying. She had never seen him look at her like that before. Not even the night he died. He opened his mouth as if to speak, but instead his shoulders sagged slightly. Exhaustion, fear, a weight he had carried alone for years. Kalina took his hand and led him toward the fire. "Sit," she said gently. He shook his head. "I don't stay." "You do tonight. Kalina, if you walk back into that storm, you won't survive it, alpha or not." She tugged him again, firmer this time. "Sit." He hesitated for a long, brittle moment. Then, slowly, he lowered himself onto the wooden bench beside the fireplace. Kalina knelt and added more logs to the flames. The orange glow spilled across his face, catching the hollows beneath his eyes, the fresh scar across his brow, the bruising at the edge of his jaw. Marks she hadn't noticed outside in the dark. Her stomach knotted. "Kade, what else did they do to you?" He didn't answer immediately. He stared into the fire, expression tight and distant. "Pain," he said quietly. "Endless. They wanted to break my mind, break my spirit, break the wolf inside me. They wanted my power, my memories of leading the pack, my instincts, everything that makes an alpha an alpha." She swallowed hard. "And the mark? That was the last thing they carved into me. The night before they let me go." His fingers brushed absently over the place it hid beneath torn leather. "I don't know what it means, but it burns sometimes. And each time, I feel like I lose a piece of myself." Kalina's breath caught. "Kade!" He looked at her then, really looked at her. And for the first time since he stepped out of the storm, something fragile cracked in his expression. "I came here to warn you." His voice dropped to a near whisper. "Not to drag you into whatever I've become. She rose slowly to her feet and stood between his knees, forcing him to look up at her. Kade, listen to me. Whatever happened, whatever they did, whatever follows you, I'm not afraid. I lost you once. I won't lose you again. He stared up at her with a tortured kind of awe, as if he couldn't understand why she still cared. Kalina. His hand lifted, then fell, as though he didn't trust himself to touch her. You don't understand what you're offering. I know exactly what I'm offering. She leaned closer, her voice steady despite her racing pulse. Myself, my strength, my choice, and I choose you. His breath hitched, the same sharp, broken sound she remembered from the night he died. Don't, he whispered hoarsely. Don't say things like that, not unless you mean them. I've meant them since before you died. He shut his eyes, pained. I never should have made you wait. You didn't choose to leave, she said softly, but you chose to come back. He opened his eyes, and for a heartbeat she saw the man he once was, strong, loyal, fierce. The alpha she had loved, the man she had mourned. Kalina, he breathed, I came back because I couldn't rest knowing I left you behind. Every night in that place, I saw your face. Every morning, I fought to survive just one more hour so I could hold on to that memory. Her pulse fluttered. Then stay, just until dawn. He looked toward the window where the storm raged in white fury against the night. I can't, he said. They'll track me. Then we face them, together. Kaylee, she bent down and touched her forehead to his. Stay. He inhaled sharply, his fingers curling into the edge of the bench. For a long moment, he didn't move. Then his hands rose, hesitant at first, and settled at her waist. They trembled, just barely. The tremor of a man who didn't believe he deserved to be touched anymore. Just until dawn, he whispered. Kalina nodded. He closed his eyes and rested his forehead against her chest. And for the first time since returning from death, Kade allowed himself to breathe. Kalina wrapped a wool blanket around Kade's shoulders, though she could feel none of the warmth from the fire reaching him. His skin was cold at first, shockingly so, as if death still clung to him. Then, without warning, heat rippled beneath her fingertips, fevered and sharp. Kade clenched his jaw, trying to hide the tremor that ran through him. Kade, she whispered, kneeling beside him, you're burning up. It will pass, he said, though his voice was rough, strained. It always does. Always? He closed his eyes. The firelight flickered across his face, throwing shadows into the hollows beneath his eyes. When they experimented on me, he murmured, barely audible, they put something inside me. I don't know what it is, but when the mark reacts, it stirs. Her heart squeezed painfully. How often does it happen? Whenever they reach for it. Reach for it, she echoed. Kade, how? He exhaled shakily and pressed a hand over the torn leather, hiding the mark. This seal. They carved it onto me the night before they let me go. It isn't what changed me. It's what lets them track me. Call to the thing they put inside me. They want to see what I become. Kalina's breath caught. Then every time the mark flares, they're testing me, he finished, watching, calling out to whatever is buried in my spirit. A low growl rolled through the walls of the cabin. Deep, close, wrong. Kalina froze. Kade's head snapped up, eyes turning sharp and alert. In one fluid motion he stood, every muscle tense. They found me, he whispered. Kalina moved toward the window, but Kade grabbed her wrist. Don't, he warned. They see movement. What are they? She breathed. They aren't wolves, he said softly. Not anymore. Another snarl tore through the wind outside, followed by the heavy thud of something circling the cabin. Then another. Footsteps, slow, predatory, counting the walls, testing the perimeter. Kalina's pulse pounded. Kade, she whispered, you said the Blood-Fang clan would come. They didn't. Then who? The things they made from me. His voice was hoarse. The half-shadows, blended from stolen alpha power. They used the mark to track me and to control them. A heavy slam shook the door. Kalina gasped and stumbled back. Kade moved instantly, putting himself between her and the door. Kade! No, he growled. Stay behind me. The mark beneath his torn armor began to glow through the fabric, a pale silver pulse that matched the rhythm of the snarling outside. As though responding. As though answering. Kade hissed sharply and pressed a palm against his chest. No, not now, he breathed. They're trying to wake it. The thing they planted in me, they wanted awake. Kalina grabbed his arm. Fight it! I am. But his knees buckled for a heartbeat, and she caught him before he could fall. Kade, she whispered urgently, talk to me. Stay with me. I don't know if I can. His voice broke. Kalina, if I change, if I become the thing they wanted, you need to run. I won't leave you. You must. She shook her head fiercely. No, never again. His eyes softened briefly before pain twisted across his features. The mark flared brighter, silver bleeding through the torn leather like light trying to escape. Something slammed into the door again. Kalina flinched. Kade didn't move. I died once to protect you, he said quietly. I won't let death follow me inside your home. You're not dying again. You don't know that. She stepped closer, cupping his face with trembling hands. Then tell me what you never said the night you fell. Kade's breath shattered. He closed his eyes as if bracing himself against a blow. I chose you, he whispered, before the battle, before the ambush. I was going to name you my Luna when we returned. Kalina's throat tightened. Kade. I never got to tell you, he continued, voice cracking. I wanted to spend my life with you, all of it, but I died with the words still inside me. Her vision blurred. I knew, she whispered. I always knew. Wind howled, the half-shadows snarled, the cabin shook. But for that moment, there was only them. Kade lifted his forehead to hers, the heat from the mark warming even the space between them. I came back for you, Kalina, he said. Even with this thing inside me, I came back for you. She curled her fingers into his cloak. Then stay alive for me. The door splintered. Kade spun toward it, teeth clenched, eyes blazing with a silver light she had never seen before. They're inside, he whispered. And the mark over his heart erupted in silver fire. The door gave way with a roar of splintering wood. Cold wind and snow burst into the cabin, and with it came a creature that should not have existed. It was shaped like a wolf, but twisted wrong. Too tall, too thin, its limbs stretched as if pulled by invisible hooks. Its eyes glowed a dead, icy white. Smoke curled from its fur, and where paws should have been, shadow pooled like spilled ink, a half-shadow. The moment it crossed the threshold, Kade shoved Kalina behind him, his body coiling with the instincts of an alpha pushed to the edge. Stay back, he growled. Kalina stayed close, steady even as her pulse raced. The mark beneath his torn armor pulsed once, sharp, bright, and Kade flinched as heat surged through his body. Another snarl ripped through the doorway as two more half-shadows slithered inside. Their bodies flickered between solid flesh and smoke, bending and reforming in wrong, unnatural ways. The first creature lunged. Kade met it mid-air, crushing it against the floorboards before it dissolved and reformed again, snarling. Kalina stepped closer to him, her voice soft and steady. You're not alone this time, she whispered. Do you hear me? I will never leave you. The mark flared again, light pulsing like a second heartbeat beneath his skin. They're trying to wake whatever they put inside me, he muttered. They want it awake. They want it in control. Kalina touched his arm gently, grounding him. Anchor yourself here. With me. Kade exhaled shakily, and for a moment the silver light in his eyes dimmed. Then a fourth half-shadow crawled through the broken doorway. Kade, she asked softly, what does the mark want? Not what, he rasped. Who? They want me to become the weapon they failed to make. Her grip on his arm tightened. But you're still fighting. I see you. He looked at her, jaw trembling. I don't know how much longer I can. She stepped in front of him briefly, placing both hands on his cheeks, forcing him to meet her gaze. Then hold on to this, she whispered. Hold on to me. Hold on to the man you were the night you fell. His breath broke. He reached up and touched her wrist, just barely. His voice was raw. Kalina, there's something I never told you. Kade, she breathed. Tell me. I chose you, he whispered. Before the battle. Before the ambush. I had already chosen you as my Luna. I just never had the chance to say the words aloud. Her heart stuttered. Kade, I died with the truth still inside me. I died wanting you beside me for the rest of my life. Kalina's eyes burned. I knew, she whispered. I felt it. Wind howled. The half-shadows snarled. The cabin shook. But for that moment, it was only them. Kade leaned his forehead against hers. The glow of the mark warmed even the air between them. I came back because my spirit remembered you, he said. Even in death, even in darkness, you were the only thing I held on to. She cupped his jaw with both hands. Then stay with me now. But the creatures lunged. Kade spun, pulling Kalina behind him in one fluid movement as he slammed his arm into the nearest half-shadow. The creature flew across the floor, its body ripping into smoke. Two more leapt. Kade! Kalina cried out in warning. He moved with frightening speed, blocking one and kicking the other away. But every strike made the mark flare brighter. He staggered once, gripping the edge of a table to stay upright. His head turned toward her. For one terrifying heartbeat, his eyes were pure metallic silver, no pupils. Kade, she whispered, calm as the fire behind him. I'm right here. The silver flickered. He gasped, anchoring himself with a hand against the floor. Kalina, he choked out. I'm losing it. You're still you, she said, touching his arm again. I can feel it. A fifth half-shadow slammed into the doorframe. Kade straightened, breath shaking. I died once protecting you, he said softly. I won't let these things reach you. And I'm not letting them take you, she answered, steady and sure. His eyes softened just for a heartbeat. Then the creatures charged. Kade grabbed Kalina's hand, pulling her close, anchoring himself to her. Whatever happens, he whispered, don't let go. I won't. They faced the creatures together, and as the half-shadows leapt, the mark over Kade's heart burst into blinding silver light. The silver light exploded from Kade's chest in a wave that tore across the floorboards like a shockwave. The half-shadows were thrown back, slamming into walls and collapsing into piles of thick, rippling smoke before reforming with shrill, unnatural screams. Kalina shielded her eyes from the flare, but she didn't let go of Kade's hand. His grip tightened painfully, his entire body shaking as the light poured from the mark beneath his torn armor. His breath came in frantic bursts. He dropped to one knee, the glow radiating up his throat, through the veins in his neck, along the lines of muscle in his arms. His fingers clawed at the floorboards, struggling to ground himself in something. Anything. Kade, she murmured again, kneeling beside him. Listen to me. Hold on to my voice. He dragged in a ragged breath, but the mark pulsed violently, silver bleeding outward like something inside him was expanding, pushing, reaching. The half-shadows began to stir. One lunged. Kalina barely had time to react before Kade surged upward, catching the creature mid-strike. But this time he didn't throw it aside. He held it suspended in the air as silver light crawled along his arm and into the creature's body. It shrieked, writhing. Kade's eyes had gone fully silver again, bright, consuming, endless. The creature's shadowy form convulsed, as if being drained. "Kade!" she said sharply, grabbing his face between both hands. "Look at me!" For a heartbeat, nothing changed. Then his gaze flicked to her, just barely, and the creature fell from his grasp, hitting the floor as a pile of collapsing smoke and bone. Kade staggered back, chest heaving. He braced himself on the edge of the table, silver light stuttering inside his veins. Another half-shadow launched itself toward them. Kade roared, a sound so deep it rattled the walls, and slammed his fist into the creature's chest. Silver light burst from the point of impact, ripping the creature apart in a shower of smoke that evaporated into nothing. The remaining creatures looked at him differently now, afraid. Kalina saw it, how they hesitated, how they crouched low, how their shrieks shifted into something close to submission. "Kade," she whispered, terrified for him. "I think they're responding to you." His breath hitched. "Because I'm becoming what they wanted." "But you're not," she said firmly, stepping in front of him as the creatures circled again. "You're choosing something different." Another pulse from the mark sent him to one knee. "Kalina? Look at me," she said softly. He lifted his head, breath shaking. "You came back to me," she whispered, "not to them." Outside, a howl rolled across the peaks, long, low, commanding. The sound reverberated through the ground, through the cabin walls, through Kade's bones. A summons. The half-shadows shrieked and snapped their heads toward the sound, frozen for a moment, as if listening. Then they began to retreat, not defeated, but ordered away. "Kade," Kalina whispered, "what does that mean?" His expression twisted. Fear, anger, recognition. "They're calling them home," he said, "and they know where to find me now." Kalina felt her stomach drop. "The Blood-Fang clan?" "Worse," he breathed. "The one who commanded them. The alpha they made after me." "The experiments," she whispered. "They created another." He nodded once, grimly. "A stronger version, but hollow. If he gets here, you won't survive his arrival." Kalina grabbed his face again, grounding him. "Kade, listen. What do we do?" He sucked in a breath as the last half-shadow vanished into the storm. "You run," he said, "and I fight him, so you have a chance to get away." "Kade," she whispered, "I won't leave you." His jaw clenched. "You have to." She looked at the mark pulsing on his chest, and the answer rose to her lips before she could think to silence it. "You said they sealed that mark to control whatever they planted in you." "Yes." "Then break it." Kade stared at her as if she'd struck him. "Kalina," he said hoarsely, "if I break it, whatever is inside me might come out. I trust you." "You shouldn't." "I do." He swallowed hard. "Kalina," he whispered, "if we break it and I lose myself, you won't." He closed his eyes, shaking. "I need you," she said softly. "Stay with me. Let me help you." Kade exhaled a shuddering breath. Then he took both of her hands in his. "Then stay close," he whispered, "because if we do this, there's no turning back." Kalina stepped closer. "I'm here," she said softly. The mark flared brighter, almost white, almost pure, almost alive. The cabin filled with light, and Kade screamed as the seal began to crack. The light rising beneath Kade's skin wasn't gentle this time. It tore through him, searing along the cracks of the mark carved into his chest, forcing his body forward as if the power itself was trying to rip free. Kade braced one hand against the floor and growled, the sound deep and violent. His back arched, muscles locking, breath shuddering through clenched teeth. "Stay back," he ordered, voice rough. "Kalina, do not touch me." It wasn't fear, it was command. He was still leading, still fighting. Kalina didn't step away. She watched him, steady, focused, heart pounding but controlled, as the silver lines crawled up his throat, his jaw, into his eyes. His fists trembled, not from weakness, but from the force he was holding back. "I won't bow to this," he snarled through his teeth. "I won't let them shape me." Kalina took one slow step forward. "Then you don't face it alone." His gaze snapped to her, bright silver drowning out the man beneath. "Kalina," he growled. "I said stay back." She shook her head once, calm and sure. No. Another surge ripped through his chest. Light spilled through the torn armor in jagged beams. His hands dug into the floorboards as he forced himself upright inch by inch, refusing to collapse. He was fighting. Hard. But the mark was a living thing now, cracking, breaking, unraveling. Kalina moved. Quick, decisive, fearless. Before he could command her again, she dropped to her knees in front of him and grabbed his face between both hands, holding him steady, forcing him to meet her eyes. His breath hitched. "Kalina," he rasped, not in command this time, but in warning. "You told me not to move," she said softly, "but I choose you, even now." His eyes widened, silver flaring, then flickering. She held his face tighter, foreheads almost touching, her voice low and unwavering. "They carved something into you, but they didn't carve out who you are." The light beneath his skin pulsed violently. "Kade," she whispered, "I'm right here. Look at me. Only me." His fingers curled around her wrists, not pushing her away, not stopping her, but anchoring himself to her touch. Another surge hit. He roared, the sound ripping out of him as silver light burst from the mark. Cracks split wider across his chest, glowing like molten stone bursting apart. Kalina didn't flinch. She held him, grounded him, chose him. The light erupted again, this time wrapping around both of them like a shockwave. Kalina gasped as it hit her, but she didn't let go. Her hands stayed on his face, steady, unbreaking. "Kade," she whispered through the light. "Come back." His body shuddered. The cracks blazed, and then the mark shattered. A burst of pure silver exploded outward, blowing open the air in a wave that rattled every wall and sent loose snow falling from the beams above. Kade slumped forward, catching himself with both arms before he could fall into her. His breathing was harsh but controlled. The silver receded slowly from his veins. He lifted his head. His eyes were human again, ragged, exhausted, but him. "Kalina," he rasped, voice low and fierce. "You broke it." She shook her head gently, brushing her thumb along his cheek. "No," she whispered. "Our bond did." A heavy thud hit the outside wall, then another, then a slow, resonant growl. Kade's gaze hardened. He rose to his feet, pulling Kalina with him, placing her behind him instinctively. A heavy thud hit the outside wall, then another, then a slow, resonant growl. Kade's gaze hardened. He rose to his feet, pulling Kalina with him, placing her behind him instinctively. "He knows it's gone," Kade said, voice steady. "The hollow one. The alpha they made after me." Kalina swallowed. "He's coming?" Kade stepped toward the broken doorway, shoulders squaring, every line of him solid and unyielding. "He's already here." "What do we do?" she asked softly. Kade's jaw tightened. He didn't hesitate. "We face him," he said, "together." The wind outside the shattered doorway shifted, slow, deliberate, heavy. Snow swirled inward like something enormous was shaping the storm around itself. Kalina felt the temperature drop as if winter itself was holding its breath. A deep rumble moved across the mountain. Not a howl, not a voice, but something in between. A sound layered with command, with challenge, with a cold intelligence that made the half-shadows seem like harmless shadows. The snow outside shifted, then parted. A figure stepped through the storm, taller than Kade, broader, built like a man carved from ice and iron. His hair was white as frost, his skin pale as moonlight, and his eyes, they were empty, as if nothing had ever lived behind them. Kalina's breath caught. That's him? Kade didn't answer. His muscles tensed, but his voice remained calm. Stay behind me. She didn't move away. She stayed close, her presence steady at his back. The hollow alpha stepped through the remains of the doorway without slowing. Snow hissed under his boots as he crossed the threshold. He stopped 3 paces away, close enough for Kalina to see the faint silver veins beneath his skin, pulsing in rhythm with a power that didn't feel alive. He tilted his head, studied Kade, then spoke. Exile. The voice was wrong, layered, echoed, like it had been manufactured from stolen breaths. Kade's jaw flexed. I wasn't exiled. I escaped. No, the hollow alpha replied. You were replaced. Kalina felt Kade's body tense, but he didn't step back. If anything, he leaned forward slightly, bracing for a fight he'd been preparing for since the day he left the Blood-Fang stronghold. You broke the seal, the hollow alpha said. You should not have been able. Kade's stance widened, steady as the mountains around them. I had help. The hollow alpha's gaze drifted past him, to Kalina. She stared back without flinching. The creature's head tilted slowly, assessing her as if she were an experiment he couldn't categorize. She is irrelevant. Kade's voice dropped into a low, lethal rumble. She is mine. A faint hum of energy rippled through the hollow alpha's skin. Then you remain flawed. Kalina felt the air shift before she heard it, the crackle of power building around the hollow alpha, lightning-like threads forming in the air. Kade lunged first. The two collided in a burst of light and force that shook the cabin foundations. Wood cracked. Sparks exploded. The hollow alpha's power rippled outward like a shockwave, but Kade absorbed it, driving his shoulder into the creature's chest and slamming him against the far wall. Kade roared as he struck again, fists crashing into the hollow alpha's ribs with the force of a falling tree. The creature hardly flinched at first, then its head snapped sideways as Kade's strike broke through its unnatural strength. The hollow alpha retaliated with a blow that hurled Kade across the room. Kade! Kalina moved toward him instantly. He pushed himself up at once, wiping blood from his lip with the back of his hand, eyes blazing with a ferocity she hadn't seen since before he died. I'm fine, he said. Stay behind me. The hollow alpha stepped forward, movements smooth and predatory. You cannot win. You don't know me anymore, Kade growled. Nor you, the hollow alpha answered. Kade's chest rose as he inhaled, and something inside him shifted. Not the silver corruption they'd broken, not the weakness. Something deeper, something older. Something silent beneath his skin waiting to be called. Kalina saw it in his eyes, the moment he made a choice. Kade, she murmured, what are you doing? He didn't look back at her. He kept his eyes on the hollow alpha. Ending this, he said, before he reaches you. The hollow alpha lunged again, moving faster than before. Kalina shouted Kade's name, but Kade was already there, intercepting the blow, grabbing the creature's wrist with a grip that cracked bone. The hollow alpha snarled, energy flaring beneath his skin. Kade forced him back step by step, his muscles shaking with the effort, but controlled, focused, dominant. You are obsolete, the hollow alpha hissed. Kade bared his teeth in something that wasn't a smile. Then watch a flaw defeat you. The hollow alpha drove him back again, slamming him into the table, splintering wood. Kalina flinched, but stayed where he told her. Then she moved, not toward the perfect alpha, but toward the broken lantern on the floor. Kade caught the motion from the corner of his eye. Kalina, no. I'm not standing here doing nothing, she shot back. For a heartbeat, their eyes locked. His, command and warning. Hers, resolve and fire. Then the hollow alpha ripped free of Kade's grip and hurled him across the room again. Kade landed hard, breath leaving him in a rush. The hollow alpha turned toward Kalina. Kade was up before he could think. Don't touch her! The hollow alpha paused, tilting his head. You fight harder for her, than you ever did for yourself. Damn right I do. Kalina reached Kade's side as he regained his footing. He didn't push her away this time. He didn't tell her to stay behind him. He just reached for her hand and squeezed it once, hard. Together, he said. She nodded. The hollow alpha stepped forward, and the mountain seemed to hold its breath. The hollow alpha studied the way Kade and Kalina stood together, hands linked, shoulders aligned. You synchronize, it said. Inefficient. It's called trust, Kade replied. The hollow alpha lunged. Kade met it head on. Their bodies collided, wood cracking around them. Kade twisted its wrist, leapt over its strike, and drove it through the cabin wall. Kalina moved with him, never in the way, always exactly where he needed her. Stay close, he ordered. Already am. Outside, snow howled around them. The hollow alpha planted its hands in the frozen ground, drawing power that fractured the earth. Kade, Kalina whispered. I see it. A shockwave burst outward. Kade wrapped an arm around her and held his ground. How do we win? She asked. We don't overpower him, Kade said. We outmatch him. Our bond, she breathed. He nodded. The hollow alpha charged again. Follow my lead, Kade said, and this time they moved as one. The hollow alpha struck like an avalanche. Kade redirected the blow, shattered its jaw, and drove it into the snow. The creature surged back, energy building beneath its skin. It turned for Kalina. Kade hit it like a storm. You don't touch her! The hollow alpha released a blast. Instead of dodging, Kade took Kalina's hand and pulled her against him. The power struck them head on. But Kade didn't break. The broken mark along his chest flared, not with corruption but with choice, with her. The hollow alpha's eyes widened. Impossible. No, Kade said. Evolved. Step by step, they forced their way through the blast. Kalina's voice steadied him. I'm here. He slammed the hollow alpha into the ground and pinned it. Now, Kalina whispered. Kade drove his fist into its chest. The silver energy shattered. The hollow alpha collapsed, empty. Silence fell. It's done, Kade said. We, Kalina corrected softly. The mountain went still. Kade stood in the snow, breath heavy, power fading. Kalina approached slowly. Kade, come back to me. He turned and softened. He touched her cheek. You stayed. I chose you. You're not what they made you, she said. He leaned closer. I feel free. She smiled. Kalina, he whispered, I chose you before I died. I never said it. You don't have to. I already know. He cupped her face. You're mine. And you're mine. They kissed, quiet, certain, real. When they parted, he pressed his forehead to hers. We can't stay here, he said. They'll come. Then we go, she answered. Together. He took her hand. Footprints merged in the snow as they walked back to the cabin. The storm was over. The world ahead was not safe. But side by side, they were no longer afraid. Together. If you like this story, please like, share, and subscribe. It helps this channel grow. Thanks for watching.